The DOJ now issuing around 30 subpoenas with more on the way. Okay, more on the way. The intel community that surrounded Barack Obama, they are definitely being targeted. You've got Lisa Strzok Page. Peter Page, was it Peter Strzok and Lisa Page? Yeah, forgive me. They're kind of inverted. They were kind of together too. Anyway, those two getting hit along with others. Here's CNN reporting on the news. I want to bring you this first.
Breaking news, Justice Department prosecutors have just issued a subpoena to former National Intelligence Director James Clapper, a longtime target of President Trump's, and former FBI officials Peter Strzok and Lisa Page have also received subpoenas. Sources telling CNN tonight the prosecutors are now moving to subpoena the former CIA Director John Brennan. Caitlin Poland's breaking so much of this. Caitlin, what do you know about these subpoenas?
Well, Aaron, we know that this action from the Justice Department, it's not done yet. Subpoenas have gone out. Two people, including Lisa Page, Peter Strzok, you remember their names from the FBI investigation in 2016, 2017, and then intelligence chiefs who are either getting subpoenas or expecting to get subpoenas in the coming days. The former CIA director, John Brennan, the former director of national intelligence, James Clapper. But sources are telling Evan Perez and I that it is dozens of subpoenas that are going out to people in the intelligence world from 2017, that all of these subpoenas are coming from investigators based in the Southern District of Florida. So that's where Mar-a-Lago is, but the connections are a little bit more tenuous to this investigation in 2016. That would be Crossfire Hurricane. That's what it was called within the FBI. And the other thing that we know based on our sources is what these subpoenas are asking for is that investigators want people, these former officials, intelligence officials in the federal government, to turn over documents from a pretty narrow window of time, July 2016 to February 2017, things like their text messages, their emails, their computer files, everything related to an intelligence community assessment report that was produced in 2017 that summed up essentially the basis for investigating Russian interference in the 2016 election as well as the Trump campaign. It's something Donald Trump has wanted to see looked into again.
Right, absolutely. And of course, we'll know there was a bipartisan, congressional, fully bipartisan right there.
Unbelievable. Meanwhile, you have the president of the United States putting out on his social media accounts this morning that, in fact, it's not just that team, but actually Hillary Clinton that's in jeopardy as well. I'm going to bring that to you. Guys, this is huge, okay? Because we knew about a lot of this stuff. We've talked about a lot of this stuff. Did we ever think that we would actually see this come to fruition, that we would really start to see a real investigation that wasn't being operated by the likes of Deep State or people that were close to Deep State? We didn't, right? But now you got Bongino in there. You got Kash Patel in there. And you got Pam Bondi in there. And things are happening. Take a look.
I think John Brennan and the FBI lovebirds, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, Jim Comey, James Clapper, the whole lot of them, the whole lot of Russia hoaxers thought that they'd gotten away with it. There was no way that they thought that Donald Trump would survive, the impeachment, the lies, the portraying him as a Russian puppet, a Russian stooge of Vladimir Putin. And then, of course, the 2020 election when they buried all the bad evidence about Joe Biden and Hunter Biden from the laptop, and they wrote that or signed that Dirty 51 letter, John Brennan again, right in the thick of things. They thought that they had just dispatched Donald Trump to probably to jail or certainly to ignominy, certainly not to become president again. And it's just their worst nightmares. And I think they probably thought that Donald Trump and his administration would be distracted and not worry about going back to the past and maybe show mercy like Trump did in his first term to Hillary Clinton, but no such thing. And it's not about retribution, even though Donald Trump did say to his supporters before the 2024 election, I am your retribution. That's very satisfying, but it's more than that. It is really about deterrence. It's about making sure that never again will a CIA director, an FBI director, an NSA director, or any of these institutions be weaponized against a sitting president and against a candidate for office. And
See, that's actually really important. And that was Miranda Devine from the New York Post. Don't forget, the New York Post was one of the publications that saw its Twitter account shut down because they had done the initial reporting on the Hunter Biden laptop, reporting that it, in fact, was Hunter Biden's laptop. By the way, it was being investigated by the FBI at the time, and yet you had the likes of Brennan, for example, and a whole bunch of other people, right? The guy who eventually became Secretary of State, apparently this was his brainchild. They decided to put it in Politico, a whole like public statement, right, on the Hunter Biden emails, and you had 51X spooks signing off on all of this, including Mike Morrell, the then deputy director of the CIA. I mean, it's really pretty just remarkable what went down, and to think that the intelligence community was in on all of it. Pretty awful. James Clapper as well, Mike Hayden, Liam Panetta, John Brennan, who's probably gonna get his subpoena any day now. John Brennan, yeah, this is the guy who said, when referring to this statement, that they were never calling it disinformation. He's like turning into Clinton now. He's turning into Bill Clinton. Remember? And Bill Clinton's like, I did not have, well, we're not going to go there, okay? We're just going to keep it clean, all right? We're not going to go there. When semantics became a big deal. Well, in this particular case, yet again, you got Brennan trying to argue that semantics matter. He said, we never said it was disinformation, despite the fact that the publication that they chose to run this entire letter, which was Politico, which was getting USAID money, funny enough, for all their little Politico subscriptions for like 10 grand a year. Are you kidding me? I mean, I can understand a Bloomberg terminal, but a Politico subscription? No way. That was kind of, funny money, as I like to say. Anyway, more than 50 former Intel officials signing a letter casting down on the New York Post story about the former president's vice president's son. And they were calling it right there in the headline, Russian disinformation. And yet look at the tizzy this little guy went into. And boy, he sort of looks like a little guy when you see him going, beep, 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 beep. Trying to get in a fist fight with somebody who said, why'd you call it disinformation? He's like, no, it was an influence campaign. It wasn't disinformation. Again, I cite the headline in the publication they chose to run it in. Here we go. You gotta listen up. Just look at it.
And you misrepresented that. We never said it was disinformation. We said it was Russian influence operations, which is what they do. There's a big difference between influence operations. No, you don't know that. Yes, Comey knew. Comey knew. The literature said it.
Oh my gosh. All right. So Brennan now is in hot water. It was disinformation according to the title, but he wants to say, no, it was an influence campaign. I don't care. What were you guys doing? You were trying to put an entire side out of business. We know damn well what you were doing. Oh, just ask Lisa and Peter, the lovebirds, right? Well, he's not going to win, is he? Oh, we won't let him. Oops, I'm going back 4 years. I mean, because it just kept happening over and over and over again. It happened in 2016, then it happened in 2020, and now it's happening again. Thank you for the generosity. I'm seeing lots of super chats here in the show today. I know, because this is important, and I think everybody's hungry for this information. I get it. Like, some people feel frustrated, like it's not going to happen. I am just going to say, like, look, I trust Dan. I don't know Kash as well, but I've known Dan a lot of years. We worked together at Fox, and I know that he's there for a reason. You guys you're getting into the Clinton stuff. All right, I'm not going to go there, but you know what I mean. Cat Crazy, good to see you in the room. Leslie as well, and of course, peace of my mind. I love how you're saying yes. It wasn't disinformation. It was intelligence, aka bad intelligence. Right? Brennan was the guy, don't forget, who said, oh, I don't do evidence. I do intelligence. Because, intelligence apparently is implying a whole different thing, because you can massage or manipulate it however you want. Yeah, the guy's a super spy who's a political hack. That's who's running your CIA, a political hack. I mean, so when Miranda said earlier, like, this can't happen again, she wasn't kidding. Like, this isn't about just retribution. I mean, maybe there's a little tiny bit of retribution in there, but what this is really about, and if you were to push the president on this, it's about making sure that this doesn't happen again, because it shouldn't happen to anyone. It's not right. It's not fair. For goodness sakes, the likes of Letitia James, the lovely, I'm being facetious, Letitia James trying to bankrupt him, the likes of Fannie Willis, who had her own indiscretion, shall we say, Nathan Wade, paying the boyfriend, right? With taxpayer dollars. Don't you love how these Dems work? Trying to go after him, getting the mugshot of him. You had Alvin Bragg. You had Jack Smith, for goodness sakes. We got to get into that. I mean, a whole bunch of Keystone cops. Who's on first, running around trying to get Donald Trump. Believe me, if they had anything, they would have gotten it. And yet they kept coming up empty-handed, and they don't like him. Why? Because he's not one of them. He's an outsider. He's trying to do things a different way. Use financial influence, for example, instead of guns. You know, lose or gain dollars in some cases. Wait till you see the expose on MSNBC this morning. The Treasury Secretary took the anchor down. I just loved it because these stupid anchors know nothing about finance. And I say that as someone who does know something about finance, who started her career in finance, who actually was trading emerging debt markets, sovereign debt at Goldman Sachs. So when I find stupid anchors trying to talk about the economy, it gets my Irish up. What can I say? Meanwhile, some of these stupid anchors, they're all on MSNBC. And CNN. They're all in the mainstream media. What can I say? Anybody who's got talent is out on their own. Take a look at this guy talking about how it's coming for John Brennan. John Brennan, heck, he's one of them. He's an MSNBC contributor because who doesn't grow up to want to be the head of the CIA and then become an MSNBC contributor?
Well, so John Brennan is one of the key figures in what really is a massive and sprawling investigation as envisioned down in South Florida. And the reason it's down there, and that's new, we're reporting today that the U.S. Attorney in South Florida is leading this investigation, is because that's where the Mar-a-Lago search was. And so what they're trying to do here is knit together what they see as an ongoing conspiracy to violate Donald Trump's civil rights that began with the Russia investigation and continued on from Obama administration to Biden administration, and then somehow includes the Jack Smith investigations. It's this unified field theory of persecuting Donald Trump. And John Brennan, of course, was a central figure in the preparation of that 2017 assessment into Russian election interference. And of course, the FBI's Crossfire Hurricane investigation figures into that. How this all shakes out, Katie, is anyone's guess because, you know, we've not seen any evidence connecting any of these things, let alone any wrongdoing. And in point of fact, as you well know, John Durham, the special...
This is always what they go back to. In fact, when you look at their reporting on this over and over and over again, they keep telling you, well, we've never seen this. We don't see that. It's not possible. It's just Tulsi. I mean, listen to Brennan himself. He's like, Tulsi, she's just off her rocker trying to promote a bunch of disinformation, misinformation. For goodness sakes, you know what they said about Tulsi? Think about this. She was a real threat to Hillary Clinton's campaign. So what did they call her? A Russian spy. I mean, like, it all goes back. I mean, when in doubt, go back to Russian spy. That'll work for you. Yeah, that's what they called Tulsi. I'm sure there's no love lost between one Tulsi Gabbard and John Brennan. Too bad for him. She's in charge now. She's now head of DNI. Watch.
Tulsi Gabbard, you know, she may be impaired on the ethics front, certainly, but she's not impaired on the intellect front. And so I can only presume that she is doing this intentionally mischaracterizing, misrepresenting, and lying about what she has found.
Oh, I mean, kind of like what you guys did. I mean, you didn't even mischaracterize. You didn't find anything. Let's go back to the Russian dossier that wasn't, right? The whole made up thing, bought and paid for, courtesy of Hillary Clinton's campaign. You see, she laundered it through her law firm, who laundered it through Fusion GPS, who laundered it through Christopher Steele, who went out and hired people who, by the way, our own FBI suspected of legitimately being Russian spies. How's that for full circle? I mean, these people are unbelievable. They literally made things up, and then you're supposed to roll over and play dead? I mean, Donald Trump was Mr. Nice Guy going in last time around. It is a whole different ballgame, as my friend Dan has explained. They are out for blood. They are going to find everyone. 30 subpoenas and still counting going out. Indictments for Comey, indictments for Bolton, more indictments expected for the likes of Brennan. I'm telling you, a lot of people are going down because in this new world, your influence, the influence you may have had in the past, it no longer matters. Listen to Dan a couple months ago on my former employer, Fox.
Let me ask you about, are you going to be looking into, when Kash and Pam any potential collusion between the DOJ, Letitia James, the novel legal theory of Alvin Bragg or Nathan Wade or Fonnie Willis and the DOJ. Is that something? Has anything come up? Is there any way to determine whether or not evidence was destroyed in any of these cases?
Well, there's always a way to determine that. I don't want to comment on that specific case right now for a reason. I don't want to get ahead of the Department of Justice on that. But I want to say this. You know, the FBI obviously has the public corruption portfolio. And yes, if you are a corrupt politician out there, if you are engaged in behavior, you know what you're doing, we're going to find you. I promise. No one is going to get off. The days of selecting and putting your partisan bias on and taking care of your friends, those days are over. You know what, Sean? I don't have any friends. I don't want any friends. Well, maybe outside of you and a couple of, I don't care.
You know, it's important what he's saying there, because don't forget, one of Comey's friends happened to be his own son-in-law, who was working in the Virginia U.S. Attorney's Office. Think about that. The U.S. Attorney who had already, they had put forward subpoenas. They were investigating Comey. And then his own son-in-law, who's hearing about all this, right? They got rid of the first guy. That's why they put Lindsay in there, Lindsay Halligan, because the first guy wasn't willing to do anything. Why? I guess because of his friends. As Dan said, friendships, they no longer matter. We're not going to just protect our own in this environment. We're going to actually come out and see what really, really went down. And as you look at everything, guys, it's really very, very concerning. You heard me mention Comey. We just got word recently last week, thanks to Lindsay's investigation and Lindsay's information that she put forward before the court in this indictment case. I mean, he had effectively written about a zillion notes here. I mean, here's a handwritten note that's on FBI stationery, and Comey's talking about, taking everyone down, about, how, that Kerry was going to be in charge of talking about Trump's finances and debts to Moscow. He didn't have any. Deutsche Bank out of Germany was his banker, but they were trying to do all these crazy ties because they felt like if they could feed the media narrative, that would be sufficient. And don't forget, James Comey himself, he actually was out there peddling this information to his buddy who was at Columbia Law School, who actually was on the payroll of the FBI. I love this. His name was Reinhold Neubauer 7. That was James Comey's pseudonym. It's just sort of funny. Like, who chooses a pseudonym like that? Reinhold. So Reinhold is talking to his friend Dan at Columbia Law School, and like Dan's offering to give him a boost, right? To boost his credibility. And he writes back, Reinhold, that is no need at this point. It would be shouting into the wind. Someday they will figure it out. And as Jack and Ben point out, my decision will be one a President-elect Clinton will be grateful for, although that wasn't why I did it. Okay, so he was, I'm just saying, she's going to be grateful for it. She's going to be, all of this is coming out. So these are all in the exhibits. And they even have cell phone messages where he's talking about making sure that some of his people at the FBI leak certain things to members of the media. And this is despite the fact that he himself said he never did such a thing, right? You remember this. I actually did it in my shorts feed.
Wow. There's this little thing called tape.
Director Comey, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation?
Never.
Have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation?
No. I needed to get that out into the public square. And so I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter. Didn't do it myself for a variety of reasons, but I asked him to because I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel.
And there we have it.
Yeah, there you have it. I mean, so handwritten notes. She's bringing receipts right now. And I would just say this really doesn't look good. It doesn't look good for Comey. It doesn't look good for the Obama intel operation. Meanwhile, I mean, it doesn't end there, right? I mean, you think about what Arctic Frost and Jack Smith picked up. The mantle continued. I mean, they just fired an agent like last week. Kash Patel forced out one of the special agents at the FBI who apparently was in charge of part of this investigation. This would have come on the heels of this guy, Timothy Thibault, who originally started the investigation, Arctic Frost. And by the way, he did this without the proper permission. He did this by signing off. I mean, all the metadata, according to Grassley, shows that this guy, Thibault, initiated this investigation into the metadata of senators' cell phones. They were trying to map out the MAGA movement. It's unbelievable, right? And he's the guy, Thibault, who started it, according to Grassley, and then he completely ignored this thing called the no self-approval rule because he approved his own investigation. Here it is, FBI's no self-approval rule. Section 3523 of the FBI's Domestic Investigations and Operations Guide say that you can't actually do that. An official who approves an investigation action, especially opening or closing a case, may not approve their own work. Instead, you need an independent review, but they didn't have any independent review. No, you see, because they were on a mission. They had to get Trump no matter what. And so now it looks like Jack Smith, he's in for a lot of trouble. The president putting this out recently, along with a whole bunch of other people that he names, calling them a sinister group because it was this J6 witch hunt. I mean, we saw the BBC's editing of that tape, right? They were doing that actually as recently as this last round in the election because they were once again, I think, trying to infect people with TDS. But they wanted to stop this, and Grassley is exposing it all. Take a look as he tells us exactly what went down with Arctic Frost and the metadata, the tapping of the phones. Oops, I can't say that. It's not wiretapping. It's called logging. You log the phone data because you figure out who's talking to who, for how long, where they're talking to them from, and then you keep piecing it together in one big giant tree branch to figure out who's associated with MAGA. It's illegal.
I've recently been informed by Verizon that at least 11 members with Verizon accounts were affected. That includes a hard line for Senator Cruz's office and a staffer's cell phone for former Senator Loeffler. AT&T informed me they challenged the legal basis for Jack Smith's efforts, and Smith backed down.
Well, good for AT&T, right? Good for AT&T. As Senator Kennedy has said, some of these phone companies needed to grow a pair or maybe buy one on Amazon because they were folding and they shouldn't have because sure, okay, you need like some kind of lawful order for this, but you could fight the subpoena. You could say, gee, this is kind of weird because you're trying to go after an actual sitting U.S. senator, including Ted Cruz. Do you think he appreciated this? No.
Arctic Frost is Joe Biden's Watergate. Merrick Garland was a fundamentally corrupt attorney general. Jack Smith was a fundamentally corrupt prosecutor. This was a political enemies list from the beginning. 197 subpoenas for 430 Republican entities and individuals. That is an absolute and egregious abuse of power.
Yeah, you better believe. And here's Trump saying, MAGA never forget or it will happen again. I mean, I hear him, right? I saw the sound. I actually played it in my shorts feed just this week of Bannon saying, listen, this is serious. If we don't actually win in the next go around, there are going to be some people that are going to be going to jail. Bannon said, myself included. I mean, he's not joking because what's going to happen is they're going to try to go after this president yet again. And it's sickening, but it is what it is. And so if you don't actually get this thing off and running, and they don't have a lot of time, right? You got to move. Time is of the essence. And I hear some of you guys, you're worried about time. You're worried nothing's going to happen. I think something will. I actually have a little bit of faith in these guys.